Well, I jokingly said last week that I would like to try one of these press conferences after a win, and hopefully next week I'm having another press conference after a win. So I'm not really superstitious, but why take a chance? I'll repeat myself. It was a nice night, at Brett Stadium as usual. We had a great crowd. The fans showed up and to support their Bears, and we came out and had, our defense really set the tone from the beginning of the football game. We knew Tusculum was going to try to run the football. They'd started number 12 the first week of the season and benched him the week before, played a freshman, so we weren't really sure what we were going to get quarterback-wise. And they brought him out, and he's the senior starter who kind of hurt us a year ago. And in your mind, you're thinking, okay, they're going to come out and throw the ball. And they really stuck to who they are and what they were trying to become. And they came out and really tried to establish the run game, and our defense was up to the challenge. And that really starts with the defensive line and a lot of good young kids playing there. Obviously, Chris Green's a senior and leads the way for us. But to see, Forney at linebacker, those are our two seniors in that front that did a nice job. But to see a guy like Clayton Horn to go in there in his first collegiate start as a freshman and do some of the things that he did and help solidify that front was big for us. And then, then we played. We got a lucky break on a punt. Kid fumbled it. We got a field goal out of it. Get up to a 3-0 lead. Defense stops and we come out, and Nelson Brown hits a 30-yard, touchdown to put us up by 10. And then really we had control of the game from then on out. We got one more score right before the half. They went single high, and we were able to get TJ one-on-one, and I think we threw a 38 or 39-yard touchdown to TJ. So you go into halftime, with a 17-3 lead. Talked to the team at the half and said, our job is to pretend that we're down 14-0, play this game with that same sense of urgency. And I was concerned about us because we had been ahead all year. Handling failure is one thing that we've been trying to work and deal with, but now you've got to learn to handle success. And, I was proud of the kids. They went out and did a nice job in the third quarter and kind of put the game away. And we were able to run the ball the rest of the game in the fourth quarter and make the clock go tick, 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 which D coordinators like. And it's fun to call it that way when you're up a couple touchdowns and you can stay ahead and just keep running it, snap that thing at 4, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, and use the clock and run the game out. And we got a touchdown late. We were in a goal line offense from the 50, and we ran a play, and Nelson makes he spits out the rear end of that thing and makes it. So it was a nice Saturday, a 31-3 victory. I think Tusculum is very similar to us in the fact that they are kind of trying to find where they're at and who they are, with the new coaching staff and moving players around and doing that. And you can see that in their program just like you can see it in our program. I do think we improved. I thought we improved the week before when we got beat 45-0. I told the team 2 Mondays ago, and I told them again last night, whether you lose or win, there are things you need to correct, there are things you need to work on, there are things that we need to get better at. It's just more fun doing it off a win, And so we went out last night and had a decent practice and worked on some things that we need to shore up moving forward. And we need a good practice again today, and good preparation, good week of preparation to host Limestone. Limestone's a scary team. Their defensive front is big and fast. And when you look at some of their stats, you can't see that. But when you watch them on tape, they'll come in here and they'll pad out pretty nice. And they got some guys in the secondary that are good cover guys. And if you get them guys, you let some guys go free, they can make some plays on you. Offensively, their head coach was an NFL wide receiver. I actually remember him playing at Northern Iowa for the Detroit Lions. And one of their coaches was a receiver at Michigan just a few years ago. And you could see that in their team. I mean, they know how to coach those receivers, and they've been blessed with some talent and skill out there. I think their tailback's a really good player. They're playing a young kid at quarterback. They're a little young up front. But they're athletic, and it's scary because we're not really as a program yet ready to exploit some of those things. It ain't like we could say, hey, Kyle, go out there and shut that kid down. He ain't here, So we gotta handle our issues and continue to grow as a football team. If we do that, then we're going to have a chance every week. If we don't do that, then we're in trouble every week, and that's just the facts and where we're at. And I do think we're much better now than we were 3 weeks ago, and that's my job as a coach. I still think we need to play hard all the time. I thought the first week we played hard about half the time. We're probably up to 80%. That's what I told the team last night. We're about a C unit as far as that goes, and that doesn't take a lot of jumping high or running fast talent to do all the time. You should always be a try-hard group, and we're going to keep coaching them to get there, and they're buying into it. You can see the kids, working hard and doing what we're asking of them, and I'm proud of the staff for that and proud of them. So, but we got a long ways to go. It's good to get a win. Don't get me wrong. I was reminded by two alums this morning that we're tied for first in the division. So I kind of joke about that, and I'm like, boys, let's just try to win them one at a time here. And but if we go out and we prepare the right way, we'll have a chance this week. Any questions?
Nelson Brown had a big game on Saturday, but the passing game, I saw that you want to try to establish that a little bit more throughout the game. What strides has the team made to just progress with the passing game?
Here's what it is. When I accept the job here, you expect to, we have led the country in rushing 4 straight years. I don't think that just happens. Now, we're totally different schematically than the way we approach it. Nelson is a redshirt freshman. He's a 215-pound plus, hard-running running back. And if you watch the tape, there's more out there even to be had than there was. At times he needs to use more patience. There's other times where he needs to hit it. I think there's times where he needs to run a little bit lower than he does. Somewhere in the third quarter, he was putting his arm up a couple times, winded, and I said, listen, good backs wear down defenses, not the other way around. Defenses don't wear down good backs. And in the fourth quarter, he came off one time, he was like, Coach, you could see him getting that growing as he was playing and feeding off the yards. And I think he rushed for 261 is the third highest total in the history of Lenoir-Rhyne football for a single guy, which is something to be said as much as they've ran the football here in the past. Now, obviously, teams are going to see that, and their safeties are already close to the line of scrimmage, and they're going to get closer to the line of scrimmage. So you need to be able to take advantage of that. When you got 3-score leads and the other team's got 3, and you don't think they could get to 21, I don't care if the safeties are lined up in our backfield, we're going to run the football. It's just we're going to use the clock. We're going to try to play smart. But I would imagine this week their safeties are going to creep down in there. They're probably going to play some man-to-man. You've got to take advantage of that. In the one home run, the go route that Jared threw to TJ was an 8-man protection. We kept both tight ends in the back. We gave a hard action. The safeties were down at the line of scrimmage, and it was a one-on-one shot outside, and the receiver needs to win, and the quarterback needs to throw. And, you don't have to be the 82 Chargers with Dan Fouts and the boys dropping back 55 times in order to have success in the throwing game. That's a successful throw. Now, moving forward, I would like to think that we're more balanced than we were last week. But my whole life, and I've had teams that led every statistical passing category you can imagine. When you've got those type of games where you're winning like that, you're going to run the football. And it's good to know that a group of, Ray Beam at tight end, who was a receiver, and 2 freshman tight ends, and a fullback, and obviously your offensive line. It's good to know that those guys can put the game in their hands, and you can just hand it to your big back and make yards and put games away when you're in that situation. But no, moving forward, we obviously want to be more balanced than that. I don't ever think of it in terms of I'm going to come out and establish the run or I'm going to loosen them up with the pass. We really always kind of look at it like we're going to play the numbers game. If they get too many people in there for the run, we need to throw it and have success. If they want to play high and wide, Tusculum, the first 3 series of the game, I think they were in cover 2 every snap. Their safeties were 20 yards off and 15 yards wide, and it didn't matter. So we were running the ball with some success. We were trying to stay patient. We weren't having a great deal of success, but we were like, okay, we can't think of it in terms of we need gas runs. Those 4- and 5-yard runs are going to add up for us, and that's what we did. We were patient with it, and then they started getting impatient, and I think we rolled out and hit an out. We bootlegged and hit a 20-yard comeback. We play action through the long touchdown. That's got to be your answer in the passing game.
Limestone has a spread offense. Most likely going to be no huddle. How you guys are preparing for that?
Well, they see it every day in practice with us. It may not be super effective, but they do see it every day. That's the norm. I always have, every coach has a meeting, 75 minutes before the game with the officials. And when I first started getting to coaching, I would have to explain to them how we played offense. Like, we're no huddle, and we're going to try to speed up, we're going to change tempos, we're going to use motions. And now I just say, hey, we do what everyone's doing. Everyone's doing that now. So our preparation should be good. Even though the last couple of teams, their formations were different, they were still, philosophically very similar. So our defense should be ready and up to that challenge. It's going to be more, can we tackle that back? Can our secondary cover those receivers who are really, I mean, they got a 6'6" receiver, a 6'4" receiver, I think a 6'3" receiver, and their smallest receiver is 5'10", you know, so I think maybe our tallest receiver is 5'10", you know. I mean, it's just, can we handle those guys? You know, now they do have a young quarterback, but I mean, they're playing a young quarterback for a lot of times. When young quarterbacks, they're young, but they're playing for a reason. They got, you know, they got some talent. Like we're playing a freshman quarterback too, but he can make some throws. He could do some things. Is he as good now as he's going to be as a senior or even a sophomore? Well, no, of course not. I mean, you hope not. We played James Harris 3 years ago at Cal when he was a sophomore. You know, there was times where you could see his brilliance. There was times where you weren't sure. You know, next year he's all conference. Next year after that, he's player of the year. I mean, those are, you know, that's the growing process that you want. But he always had the talent. You know, this kid for Limestone, he's got talent. He's just, you know, you got 3 games worth of film on him is all you got. So I'm sure he's much better now than he was in week 1, just like our kid is.
Everybody's kind of learning new schemes on both sides of the ball. Can you talk about how difficult and how it is for the offensive linemen to change from the style that they were blocking? Even now when they're run blocking, they're not using the same splits that they were using, and probably a lot of the technique may be a little different.
Well, the technique couldn't be more different if we tried to make it different. I mean, the stance in and of itself could be an hour clinic. I mean, you know, in the old offense, you're on your toes, you're leaning forward, you know, your weight is on your hand, it's white knuckled, and you're coming off low, and you're crabbing out, and you're cutting guys. And, you know, and then you got all the different schemes where you're blocking back, guys pulling. It's just totally different. Now, when you recruit that type of kid, you're getting a shorter, because he's crabbing anyway. You know, you're getting a shorter kid, a quick kid, not as girthy a kid in general. Now you're going to a stance where you're almost standing like I am, and you just go straight down and you're in a balanced stance, because half the time you're moving forward, half the time you're moving backward. In the old offense, 100% of the time, when you're throwing it, you're doing the same block scheme. You're just faking the ball and throwing something down the field. So those habits are what's been the hardest thing to break. I mean, we got a smart, I mean, this is a good school. I mean, we got a lot of smart kids to get in. I think on the board, they knew it in the first week, you know, but on the field, you know, and breaking some of those old habits, and I mean, you're at practice every day, breaking the habits from where they were at to where they need to be is 2 different things. And one's not better than the other, it's just different, you know, so that has been a monumental task for them. And at times, when you get into games in the heat of the moment, you go back to what you feel comfortable with, you know, and you'll see us every now and again, we'll just be like, look at his stance, what's he doing here? Well, he's doing what he's felt comfortable with. He's been doing this. You know, he came in and redshirted and did this for 3 years, and now he's a senior, and he's been doing this for 30 practices. You know, so it's not been easy. It's not impossible. I mean, obviously, you see where, I mean, we just rushed for, you know, whatever yards. I mean, we're getting there, and but as it goes, time will make it better. I guess what I'm trying to say.
Some people on TV like to say, you look at the schedule, how hard do you talk this week about not looking ahead to next week?
No, I mean, I talked to him last night about trying to have a good practice the next day, and I mean, that's kind of coaches. We play Carson Newman next week. Yeah, see, I mean, they know that, but we're not good enough to overlook anyone. You know, I think a lot of times, so much of that stuff, and I watch more ESPN than anybody and listen to it on the way in, but so much of that stuff is for ESPN and Monday Night Football. And I just was in the CAF, and you know, they were showing Carson Wentz and talking about how the kid for the Rams hasn't played, and I giggled because I'm like, last night when I got home, they were talking about, you know, are they playing Wentz too soon? I mean, that's for those guys to do. They got 24-hour news cycles where they got to make stuff up to talk about. So that's for them to worry about. All coaches, I guarantee you, are worried about the game in front of them. I mean, we play golf. You're on hole 12. You don't worry about hole 13 till you know, part of that. I mean, yeah. So that's, if you do, you're gonna get in trouble.
I know you are. I'm talking about
the players. I can't imagine that they are. I mean, a lot of times you'd be surprised with how many hours that they're committed in the weight room, and with their class schedules and the things that they're asking to do. A lot of them guys are just trying to get through their days. You know, my biggest challenge as a coach is you know, our program motto, so to speak, is to be present where you're at and win every day. You know, and the thing I try to tell them is, if you're in the weight room, you can't just go in the weight room. You got to work and win in the weight room. You know, if you're in the classroom, I don't want you sitting in the classroom just daydreaming about football or your girlfriend any more than when you're at practice. I want you thinking about other things. I want you to be present where you're at and trying to win at that day. You just don't go in the classroom and just sit there. You know, like my grandma, my nana used to say, you're just going to go to school and take up space. You know, you got to learn something while you're in there. And I want that at practice. You know, when they're at practice, I tell them all the time, you know, I try to tell them there are real life things that are bigger than football. And that's going to be there no matter what. But your 2 hours of practice could keep you away from those real life things. And, you know, that's part of why they have, you know, collegiate athletics. And so a lot of times, I mean, they're kids. They're not thinking 2 weeks ahead of time. I mean, they may look at it every now and go, oh, we got Carson Newman next week and be excited about it. But they're not thinking about that. I'd be shocked. I'm doing everything I can to get them to think about this week. Yeah.
Last year, Limestone used 2 quarterbacks in the game. They had more success with their backup. He was a lot larger, keeping the ball on the option. Are they primarily using the freshman all the time?
Yeah, primarily they are, and you know they're throwing it a little bit more. I mean, they got a really good tailback. He's a really good player, but they've got these receivers that are good football players too, and they're trying to, you know, do what they do. I mean, this guy played in the NFL for a number of years, so their concepts are, you know, as modern as it gets. And the coordinator, the receiver coach they got, played at Michigan with Coach Rod, so a lot of the run-pass conflict that he did there. I mean, I can remember him playing like it was yesterday and catching seam routes against Notre Dame. You know, so they got some of that in their offense, and I'm sure they're growing those packages as much as those players allow those packages to grow. And like you said, a lot of it's not. I mean, it's obviously some of it's mental, but it's not that they're not capable of learning it. It's capable of doing it and having the feel for it. And, you know, you watch tape all week and they line up in this front and this coverage versus this set and this is what we're going to do. And you come out in the game and, you know, they're in a different coverage and your team looks at you like it's a totally different, you know, we haven't got to those different scenarios yet. You just can't cover it all and the amount of time you got. It's impossible. You have to go through this. And that's where I mean, you look at Nelson, you saw him grow from the first quarter to the fourth. I mean, just by getting carries, by just doing it, there's only one way to do this, you know, and that's what we're doing. We're going through the process. It's like a head coach term right now. Saban uses it, so everyone uses it. We're in the middle of the process of doing all this. Anything else? You guys good? Well, thanks for coming. Like I said, it ought to be exciting this week. Limestone's very similar to us, new coaching staff, trying to get their kids in the right position to play. That's what we're doing. We're always juggling lineups and playing with it and trying to do the best we can to make yards and stop people and make points. We did change the kickoff a little bit. We pooched it up in there, so that helped us. We didn't have to worry about the returns. It ought to be fun. You know, our kids they'll give a good week's worth of practice and play hard on Saturday, and hopefully if everything goes right, we'll come out on top. So thanks for coming. Appreciate it.